let's talk powerful questioning. Powerful questioning. It doesn't exactly roll off the tongue, at least for me. It's competency 6 from the International Coach Federation. Out of the 11 core competencies, this is one of the most important when it comes to getting started in the field of coaching. Powerful questions, powerful questioning is a great way to begin a coach training program, which is why this is so early on in the process, because it's essentially your primary tools, your active tools, you might say, within the coaching space. It really is your powerful questions. And so we'll unpack powerful questions with a few different videos early and then plenty later on. And let's get started with this video, making it fairly simple and also a little bit of a breakdown of the ICF's core competency markers of success. When applying to become an ACC coach, PCC coach, MCC coach, an assessor, often from the ICF, listens to some recordings, or multiple assessors listen to recordings of a coach coaching someone, with permission, of course, of the person being coached. And when an assessor listens to those recordings, they are going to grade that session based on markers of success for each of the 11 competencies, or at least 10 of the competencies. The first competency is about ethics. Either the coach is ethical or not. So all the other competencies are measured with these markers. Competency 6, powerful questioning, has 7 measures of success, 7 markers of success. And I put them in 2 brackets. The first bracket, it's what's going to be explored and expanded upon with the coaching. And then the final 3 markers are in a bracket of what's the approach? How is the coach expanding? Like, how is the coach asking the questions? So let's break these down. First bracket of what's explored. First off, I love that the markers begin with powerful questions explore the identity of the individual being coached, their assumptions, who they are, what they care about, their beliefs, all of that good stuff. And that's really the richness of coaching is found when a coach explores that above, far above and beyond the problem or the situation. Yes, those things are a part of the conversation, but if we never get into the person, and we never really can build a foundation of the transformation this individual could have through coaching. So we need to start with the identity of this individual, their belief systems, their assumptions, their mindsets, all that wonderful stuff that a coach will explore. The second marker of success is the coach expands upon the self-awareness of this individual. The coach helps this individual know who they're becoming and what alternatives there could be with those mindsets, those beliefs. It's essentially marker number 1, but going forward, like growing those marker number 1 ideas. Thirdly, the third marker of success for powerful questions is the coach exploring the situation with powerful questions? And when looking at this marker in line with all the other competencies and markers of success for coaching, it's not that the coach is interviewing the coachee. It's not that the coach is digging deeply into the client's story and asking loads of informational questions. We'll actually get to that idea in future sessions. But it's about helping this person shed their own light on the fullness of the situation, the objective, the topic, the problem that they are wanting to focus on or discuss with the coaching. They are thoroughly looking at it and not just in a narrow scope. The coach is asking questions that broadens the scope of the problem, of the situation, of whatever the agenda is of the client for the session. And then fourthly, number 4 of the markers of powerful questioning is that we're not just asking questions that cycle or frolic through the meadow or anything like that. We're getting to business by the end of it all. We're outcome driven. And this is somewhat similar to the idea of coaching can be solutions focused or solutions driven. But an important distinction of language that I like to make is that the coach isn't coming up with a solution through the questions. And we're not just focusing on a problem. Instead, we're setting agenda, and we'll talk about agenda setting with other videos, but a coach helps an individual identify what they want to work on in a session, what the outcome of the session ideally would be, and throughout the exploration that happens from that point, the questions are asking, shedding light on things, getting new self-awareness, but every once in a while the coach will say, how does what you are saying right now relate to what you wanted by the end of our conversation? So there's this back and forth interplay of new exploration and then taking the lovely things that you find out there in the field and in the meadow that you've been frolicking a little bit, gathering these things back up and running back home and applying them. How does what you are realizing about your natural approach, your character qualities, your preference of accountability, and now that you're talking that through, how does that relate to how you're interacting right now with your peer and how you want to improve the relationship there? Not the most efficient question, by the way, but that's the types of things that a coach will explore as they look at identity, growth of self-awareness, exploring the situation in a broader scope, and then making sure all of that exploration is applied through an outcome-driven approach. Now, let's talk a little bit more about the actual approach, the how-to, because those are the final 3 markers of success with powerful questioning. Open and efficient is number 5, so I'll do that. Open and efficient, using client language, and non-directive. These are very important. Each of them are very important. A coach's own language should be open-ended with open questions, and it should be efficient with direct communication. Don't waste time in asking the question. Make it efficient. Make it clear. Number 6, client language. And this gets to a concept we'll thoroughly explore with our training. A coach is never hired to be their authentic self. A coach is hired to help the person they're coaching be their authentic self. And with that core philosophy in mind, the coach's language doesn't need to be reflective of who they are as a coach nearly as much as the coach's language should be reflective of who this person is being in the session. Now, that sounds a bit, abstract. So what I mean is, if this individual uses a metaphor about being a ship at sea and they feel like they're in a storm, the coach better talk about being a ship at sea. Like, just go there. Use the client's language. That's the gold. Doesn't matter what fancy vocabulary the coach might be able to have from any of their education or experience, years of working at the corporate space as an executive or having a PhD. That language has to go on the back burner in the light of this silly metaphor the client might be using in the moment, because that is how they are processing their reality. So we go there. Yes, we introduce some of our own language, but we prioritize client language. Marker 6. Marker 7, the final one, non-directive, non-leading. A coach session should not be focused on the client picking up the breadcrumbs or following the lead of the coach to the proper solution. One of my biggest faults early on, and one of my biggest temptations even still today that I always have to be aware of, is that if I get a great idea for what this individual should do in their lives and all of my wisdom and experience, I know exactly what they need to do. I need to really be careful about how I may or probably will not introduce those great ideas, because at the end of the day, it's not about me. It's about them developing. And it's about them coming up with a solution, because that in and of itself is a type of growth that gives them dignity or helps them sense dignity in themselves and helps them realize that they can solve their own problems in the future. So as a coach, I sometimes, when I was starting off, I would have a great idea and I would ask, instead of even saying it, I would ask 20 questions to get them to that idea. It wasn't very direct, and it was extremely directive. It was extremely leading. Nah, just set that aside. Sometimes you might say, hey, I've got an idea that I know has worked for plenty of other people I've worked with. Would it be okay if I shared that as part of our conversation? Okay, here's the idea, blank. But that's just an idea. I'd love to hear how that might apply to you. That's something that we'll talk about with direct communication. Outside of that, though, in powerful questioning, the coach should not lead. The coach should explore. The coach should highlight what's going on. They should be fascinated with the language of the individual. And they should, even if they have that intuition, that gut feeling, maybe this is the correct solution, either they say it succinctly and clearly in session, or they set aside that intuition for the sake of this person coming up with their own solution. There's so many different things that are at play. I mean, we have just opened the can of worms on powerful questioning with this video. And if it seems like there's a lot of content here that's not being covered yet, it's because there's a lot of content, there's a lot of depth, meat in this one competency of powerful questioning that will be expanded upon throughout this entire series of training, because really there are so many distinctions, so many methods, so many ways of practicing powerful questions, and it takes some practice. And that's how I like to wrap up these videos. You'll know that I care about you having practice. I don't know what the actual percentage should be, but coaching is probably around 80% practice and experience, 20% knowledge. We have some knowledge here. It's time to practice. It's time to sit into a training, observe someone else coaching, look at how their questions are, how they're sounding, how the coach is exploring, and what that coach is exploring. And then as you are coaching, consider, am I coaching the depth of this person, their experience, and helping them see their situation more broadly so that they get what they want out of the session? And am I doing that in a way that is not directive, that's using their language, that's very open-ended and efficient? Those are the measures of success for coaching, at least when it comes to questioning. I hope this is helpful. And thank you so much for tuning in here. Keep coaching, keep growing.